Hello, welcome to Behind the Amish Curtain. My name is Jenny Yoder.
My name's Eldon Yoder.
Today we are going to talk about Eldon's education, schooling. So the first question I have is, do the Amish have any kind of preschool, anything like that?
I think they might have now more than what they did when I first went to school.
Do you have kindergarten?
No.
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 So you pretty much start with first grade?
But I think they have that now.
Okay.
They have like what they call a kindergarten, to where you would go and maybe have a half a day of school.
Mm-hmm.
But back in my day, no. I still remember my first 2 years of schooling was in a public school, and my parents thought the public school was evil and bad, and you know, this was not the place for the kids. It was a bad environment. So they took us out of the public school and we went to parochial school, and which was a total different experience on my part. We would hitch up a horse and a double-seated carriage to go to school, which was, my older siblings, older brothers, to, get all that ready, because I was too small. I was too young to be harnessing up a horse that was 2 times higher than I was. However, so there would be 6, 7, 8 people in a double-seated carriage going to school. And we would have right at 3 miles one way to go to school. And you always had to make sure you had grain and hay for the horse. That had to be packed in the buggy too, even though you had all your lunch boxes to pack. And but it was interesting doing all that. Growing up as a small child, you went to school, and in my years of going to school, I used to stutter so bad, and I hated school. I always had bad grades, and I just could not cooperate with school. But I always loved recess. Recess was always the highlight, to go out, play ball, soccer. Those were the eventful times of, going to school. I enjoyed that. But when it come to doing math to English and spelling and reading, oh my goodness, everything was tough and hard for me.
You said you were good at spelling.
Spelling, yeah, that was probably one of the things that I picked up very easy, and it went better as time went, but it seemed like everybody else was doing better than me, and I was always the one that was behind on work. I would bring homework home, and I'm just like, I will never, make it through the 8th grade. And that's usually what we do. We go, through the 8th grade. Now, the school that I went to, Jonathan Creek School, it had 2 rooms in one building. You had 1st through the 4th in one room, and 5th through the 8th in the other room. So this was always the funny part, because you could always hear when somebody was being scolded, or sometimes even got a whipping in the room. You could hear that paddle being used on the students, and some of us were like, we would kind of snicker a little bit, and the teacher would be like, you don't do that. So as far as the education, we had geography, which I think a lot of that stuff has changed now. Geography and English, and then you had your penmanship, your writing.
Math.
I was never good at writing, and that's probably why my son is the way he is, because he writes so small for his signature and stuff, and it's the way he does it, and then it'll go through on checks or driver's license or whatever. But
What about science? Did you have any science?
Not really.
So were all of the students Amish?
Yes.
Or the teachers Amish?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Were you being taught English and Pennsylvania Dutch, or?
We would. No, this is all English.
It's all English.
Yes. And then we would have to memorize Bible verses in English, not in German. So, yeah, we would get a prize for that many verses, that many chapters that you all had memorized. And I don't regret that one bit, because there's a lot of those verses that I can bring right back up, and I can quote them, in German or in English. But Yes, there is a lot of good teaching, and there's absolutely no bullying that takes place in the school now. I don't know how it is now, but I can speak for myself back in the day. There's many times that we would laugh at some of the students because of their bad behavior, but that was not accepted. If you got caught, you got punished, you got spanked, you had to sit in, and sometimes you had to write 3 or 4,000 times, "I will not laugh at my, brother or sister, whoever." Yeah, I guess it's whatever the person's name was. You had to write that down 3 or 4,000 times. That was part of your punishment. So that meant you couldn't go play, and they knew that playing is a activity that you really enjoyed, and so it was a punishment because it wasn't just all about getting a spanking. And I know this is a little different. When you would say bad words, you picked it up from the bigger guys, the older guys. That was not good words, but we thought it was cool, right? So you would say these words, and the teacher was like, "Why are you saying that? And do you know what it means?" We're like, "No, but we heard, the big boys say it." And they're like, "But you should not be saying that because that is wrong, and it is not good to say that." And so for our punishment, we had to have palm olive soap in our mouth to make sure that we don't ever say that again, because we will remember how bad that olive or palm olive hand soap was. So, but that only went for maybe a couple months with that punishment, because there's too many parents that spoke up and said this is not good to be punishing kids that way. So it was a different experience, but it got our attention. We ain't gonna say anything bad again. As far as yes, graduating, we didn't have no GED, we didn't have college, we didn't have high school.
So explain the philosophy behind that, the Amish.
We just feel like we don't need that education to make an income or to make it livable. We felt like that education is not for us. That's for the worldly people or the English people. But there's times when I wish I would have had more education, even though I feel like I'm stable as far as financially, able to hold a job, get a job, do pretty much anything and everything. Because I know there's lots of millionaires among the Amish
that have an eighth grade education.
That have an 8th grade education. So yeah, there's lots of those stories that always amaze me. Is like, and you only have an 8th grade education, and you're kind of like a banker. I mean, you have all these millions of dollars, but they had a business, or they had a farm, or whatever that helped them out through their life, I guess you'd say, in their career that they were pursuing after. So there's a lot of those that go to 8th grade education, and after they graduate, most of those at the age of 15 are already working out. I know I was. At the age of 15, I was already at a pallet shop. I couldn't do everything that anybody else was doing, but yeah, I still remember I was making $3.85 an hour. I thought that was pretty good money. But yeah, it's just one of those things that I don't regret my upbringing. Would I want to do it again? Nah, not really.
But back in the day, it was probably more common for an Amish, most likely a boy, to take over the Amish or the business or farms. Yeah, usually farming. But there's just not as much farming going on anymore. A lot of them, even now, a lot of them work outside the home.
Yep. Very few, dairy farmers, or even cattle or whatever. But so yeah, it's an interesting life. It's a total different life going to parochial school than it is to. Because we would have the singing of the morning. We would sing 2 or 3 songs, and then somebody read a story. Most times it was a teacher, but sometimes they made the people get up and read the story. But and then you had your class, and then you had a morning break, maybe 10 or 10:30, that you got to go out and play, and then you had your lunch break that you were off for an hour with your lunch, whatever, and then you had last break, usually a 10 or 15-minute break. So it was always enough time to go out and play ball. We always enjoyed playing ball, soccer. In the wintertime, if it was ice in the pond, we would play hockey or dare base.
Ice skating.
Ice skating on the pond. That
Did you actually bring ice skates to school?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
We did. And that back in the day, that was clip-on ice skates.
Oh, that's neat.
And as time went on, we got wiser, and Mom and Dad got more money, and so they went and bought us new figure skates.
Wow.
And yeah, so I don't regret my teaching. As far as young kid, I still, like I said, I remember a lot of those Bible verses that we were taught. There was a prize to it, so it made you study and to memorize those verses. But otherwise, math, oh my goodness. I still remember Mom being by my side and just said, "Eldon, wake up. You've got to get this done. You got to get to school tomorrow." And I was like, I could care less, because I didn't like math. That was probably one of my worst subjects. But now I do business, I do math, I do all that kind of stuff.
You do. He still does long division, and I don't even think I can do long division anymore, or multiplication.
So
I just use a calculator.
Yeah, I think I was just more what they call a slow learner, it took me a longer time to pick up stuff. Even technology, when I got my first cell phone, I still remember, I don't know how to use this thing, and back then it was still a flip phone, but that's been 20 years ago. So anyway,
that's it. That's all I have.
All right. Keep smiling.
Jesus loves you.